Hi, this is Nick Freitas with Making the Argument, and back by popular demand, my wife Tina, the one you all really like in this duo. So,
That's not true.
look, I promised this a couple episodes ago that we were going to do another one of these, because specifically what we're going to talk about today is some of the ideas of racism and sexism on the left. I know it's crazy, right? Because we're so used to hearing about all the racism and sexism on the right. And typically racism or sexism on the right is defined by anytime we disagree with a left-wing policy about taxes or transportation or whatever it is, we're automatically accused of being racist and sexist, right? And there's no real objective definition to this. It's just when it's politically convenient to accuse us of those things, they do it. But we have a really concrete example on racism and I would say sexism. Tina's going to explain some of the sexism with her experience running for office with respect to what we just saw with Tim Scott and his response to the State of the Union address. Now, if you looked at what Tim Scott had to say, and Tina and I have both met Tim Scott, incredibly nice guy, right? Just not just someone that we agree with politically. I mean, I would say that we met him at a dinner a couple of years ago, and just a really genuinely nice guy.
Yeah.
So he gets up and he delivers the Republican response to the State of the Union. Now, again, if you remember the narrative that we hear on the left, it's that they want more minorities in politics, more women in politics, right? And generally as conservatives, what we want is we want good people in politics. That's what we want, and we think good people come from every race, and they're men, they're women, but we want good people in office. And so and it doesn't even mean someone that we're always going to necessarily agree with. We just want good, honest, hardworking people. So Tim Scott clearly fits those definitions, but the moment he gave the State of the Union, the left-wing reaction to Tim Scott was,
racist. Absolutely racist.
Yeah, I mean, Uncle Tim trended on Twitter for hours. And
from woke liberal white guys. It's just ridiculous.
Well, and it was amazing to me because if you look at what Tim Scott said, he gave a very reasonable response. He didn't get up there and say racism has never existed in America. No, he got up there and said racism has existed. It currently exists.
He's even experienced racism.
He's experienced.
You're not. He's not saying he hasn't experienced it, but he is trying to say that fundamentally,
we're not a racist country. And he was also talking about how some of the plans that Biden is putting forward and some of the ideas that he's putting forward is going to be detrimental to all Americans. And for that, he was excoriated. He was called an Uncle Tom. He was called an Uncle Tim.
But what's really funny is that the very next day, Kamala Harris was asked the same exact question, and she said, no, I don't believe it's a racist country, but we do have some racism. So she basically gave a summarized version of what Tim said. But she got a pass because it's just about whether or not you regurgitate the left's talking points. But if you don't, it's okay as long as you're there. You belong to them. Like they feel like they have you on their side.
Well, and that begs the question, right? Because the some people got up and said, well, they picked Tim Scott because he's the token black Republican. This is them saying this. And this was pointed out by other people. It's like, well, wait a second. Joe Biden said he was going to select a black female to be vice president, right? He didn't say I'm going to select the best person. And oh, by the way, it happens to be a black woman, which would have been great, right? That's fine. No, it was he set out to select someone based off of their color, based off of their gender, right? But then when Tim Scott gets up and gives a completely reasonable address to talk about an issue that he has personal experience and authority with, they have the audacity to say, well, that's just tokenism. So, and again, it's not just with race. We're probably, not a lot of people can say this, right? We're a married couple where both of us have run for political office.
That's true. Yeah.
Tina ran for state senate, challenged a Republican that didn't have a very Republican voting record on a lot of important issues.
The most left-wing Republican in Virginia who resides actually in an almost 70% Republican district.
So Tina stepped up and challenged him along, principles, challenged him along, this is your voting record. I don't think it corresponds with our values, and so I'm going to challenge you in the primary. And what was interesting for me, you've experienced this with me where people say horrible things about me, and you'll be going through Facebook and getting angry. And I always got used to telling Tina, like, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. This is just the way it is. Then all of a sudden she was running, and now I'm seeing.
I had to be like, it's okay, honey. It's all right. I've got this. You don't need to defend me.
Oh,
and it's funny because I was always wanting to defend you before. Yeah. And when people would say or do mean things toward me, you finally got to get a taste of that and see how hard it is to not respond to everything. And I mean, gosh, even in our last, making the argument that we did together, I mean, we had some folks that were freaking out when I said, oh, where are all of our trolls on this? Oh my gosh, you owe everyone an apology for using the word trolls.
Yeah. And but here's what I find interesting about this, right? The general left-wing narrative is we need more people in politics because of their color, because of their sex. Okay, that fine. Let's just assume we all agree with that, right? I personally, again, I go back to what are your principles? I'm not all that concerned necessarily about someone's ethnicity or their sex when it comes to when they run for office. I want to know about what their ideas are. But having said that, I can also appreciate that there are distinctions that people make, and I can appreciate why someone might feel encouraged because someone of their race or someone of their sex got elected to office, especially when, 50, 60, 70 years ago in U.S. history, that was incredibly difficult to do because of someone's sex or because of someone's race. So I recognize the value in saying, hey, this is a good thing when someone is able to get beyond barriers that, certainly used to exist. I mean, we can debate all along, how steep those barriers are now, but
it also kind of makes sense as well that people want folks with a similar background to them, so that they feel like what it's like to go through what they're going through and things like that. It's the same reason why when I look at candidates, sometimes military experience will really stand out to me, and I'll go, oh, they know the struggle that military folks are dealing with, and if they're running for Congress, good, because then they will know, whether or not it's a good idea to get into some of these wars and things like that. So, and you can apply that across the board. You might, if education's really important to you, you might want people who've been in the field of teaching, or there is a lot to be said for that. And a lot of it is I want to be able to have somebody that I identify with. And I can see how sex and race and some of these other distinctions could matter. The big issue to me is that it shouldn't be the only factor. I never vote for somebody based on sex. I love the idea of having a really strong woman in office, of course, because I'm a woman, and that's exciting. But if her policies stink, I'm not voting for her because I'm not a sexist,
Well, and that's what I want to go into is that I expected you to get hammered on certain issues. I expect people to go after you on policy and policy disagreements. What I found interesting was how liberals, especially white liberal men, treated you.